All right. I am recording. All right. So, hi, Carrie. It's great to see you.
You too.
Thank you for agreeing and being ready to engage in some coaching sessions. These are short; they're 30 minutes long, and we're gonna have 4 of them. So, before we dive right in, I want to talk to you a little bit about sort of what your goals are. And I know you've experienced coaching before, so if you have any questions about the process, but you've signed the form, so you got the consent, and you know that I'll keep this confidential within the space that we have. Yeah, so let me just, I'd love to know, like, what would you like to be focused on in these sessions? What would you like to focus on?
I think the thing that I most need to focus on for, since we have four sessions we're going to do together. I mean, you're well aware of the position I stepped into in August. I think I handed off a lot as of January 1st from my old operational responsibilities. And so now I'm transitioning to this place of I went from being like a tactical person, here's your list, and you do these things. And now I have to be more of the visionary vision caster, right? So while I still do a lot of tactical things and always will, I'm not like, I don't have a list that I'm checking off or people necessarily always assigning me things. I've got things coming at me from a million different directions, but also I need to cast a vision for the future of the organization. And so I want to be really clear in how I'm doing that, because what I'm hearing is, where are we going? And I feel like, well, duh, we're going where we've always gone, but people need something. So I need to flesh that out.
Okay. So I heard a couple of things there. One was, I heard there's your work, basically your work has changed and maybe adjusting to that. But also you mentioned wanting to flesh out a vision that you can cast. And so they're related. Which one is most important?
Probably the vision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And why, what about that is important?
I think the people need it, right? To have an anchor to move forward.
Yeah. Okay. And so at the end of the 4 sessions, what would success look like to you?
I think that I would have a clear understanding, not just of what the vision is, but some practical steps forward, like to implement whatever that is.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. So I want to make sure I've got it, because this is, I want to really value our time together. So, what I hear you saying is that it would be at the end of the 4 sessions, you would feel like this was worthwhile and successful, and we would know that we accomplished something if you had some clarity around the vision, and then practical steps forward. Maybe define that a little more for me.
So how best to communicate it, I guess,
Okay.
would be.
Okay. That's helpful.
Yeah.
So it's kind of getting your head wrapped around the vision and then be ready to communicate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. Okay. I can work with that. I love vision. So
I thought you might.
I'll try to leave my, I will try to stay in my coach role. And I
You can
will,
play consultant now and then,
yeah, I'll let you know when I'm doing that. I'm going to stay in my lane. Okay. Well, that's exciting. So to me, so let me ask you, let's just start, if today, If we want to focus in the next, we've got about, 15, 20, 23 minutes actually. If you wanted to focus on one element of that today, what would that be?
I think taking all the thoughts about what the future is like for this year and going forward, and sort of just talking through those to go, is this the vision?
Great. That would be great if we can get that done in 23 minutes.
Yeah, we'll try.
I'm
We'll
game.
see.
I'm game. Yeah. Okay. So at the end of the day, what would you feel like then you'd accomplish something?
Just today.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think to kind of vomit out, for lack of a better term, all the
Hmm.
things that are in my brain, because I think you might be able to help me make some sense of them
Okay.
and
That's
find like
great.
the through line for me
That's great.
or with
That's
me.
great. Okay. All right. Well, why don't we start? I'd like to hear, um, what. Well, I'd like to hear what you feel like you have seen as the vision so far. Just at this point, if you can even articulate anything.
Yeah, so I think the first thing we're trying to do, and this is, kind of a directive from my boss, as well as just something we need to do, is get the people on the bus who want to be on the bus and let the people off who don't want to be on the bus. And that may even mean some revenue producers, but we can't move forward if we've got people who are just sitting in the back of the bus complaining. So that's the first piece. And it's probably helpful to understand that I'm talking about a management team, but I'm also talking about the people, boots on the ground, who are in the operation generating the revenue. So
Okay.
it's kind of like two groups here.
Okay.
So in my thought process, you got to get the management team on the bus first, right? And
Mhm.
then kind of work your way through.
Mhm.
So anyone who's toxic, we want to help them leave, right?
Mhm.
Like, and also if they can be won over, I do want to be open to that, right? Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to just discount people who are toxic and go, you don't like me, so therefore there's the door. I kind of want to be open to, can we win someone over? And at what point do we say, maybe this isn't a good fit for you, right?
Mhm.
So that's like the first piece of it. The second piece of it, which cannot be shared with the larger group, but has to be part of the vision for me, is that we're talking about, so First American owns another small escrow company they've owned for, I don't know, 10 or 15 years. There's 25 employees, called Heritage Escrow. At the same time they purchased us 2 years ago, they purchased a company about half our size called Granite Escrow. So they own these three, what we term independent escrow companies, because our licensure is different than the title company. So they're talking about putting all three of these companies under my leadership. And so Russell, my number two, and he and our meeting with my boss, Mike, on Friday to kind of talk through what the support structure would look like for that. So there's this vision that I can't share widely, right?
Mhm.
Only with a couple of people, that we have to structure ourselves so that we're running a division, not just our company.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there's a little bit of a challenge there with our management team, because I can't share that, right?
Mhm.
But I also want them, I want to have a through line. So whether it's just us or whether we have these adjacent companies with us, that the vision is still the same as far as what we're doing. And
Yeah.
that is, we want to do excellent escrow. We want to continue to grow and build. We want to employ the best people, and we want to be a great place to work, right? None of that is different from what it's been in the past. Um, we always want to grow and build, right? That's where I go, like, what do you need a vision for? Because we're just doing all the things we've always done.
Right.
But
Right.
new leader, they want to hear something different, right? So that's kind of like the overarching, right? And it's hard to say, well, here's a vision, get on the bus or get off.
Right.
But we're
Right.
trying to build a team that has a cohesive, collaborative design to it. And I want to be able to trust the team,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that's part of the litmus test for being on the bus as far as the management team goes. Can I trust you? Because if I
Yeah.
can't trust you, not sure. And there's
Right.
people I'm not sure I can trust. So yeah, that's kind of the
Yeah.
of where that's at.
Yeah. So let me ask you a couple clarifying questions. Do you, as far as number of people we're talking about, just the current management team, not assuming you're going to absorb from these other two,
Yeah.
how many people are we talking about?
What are we, about 12 to 15, something
Okay.
like that? Yeah.
And do you have a sense of, I mean, how many people are, you know, either tell me how many people you're like, I'm not that worried about it, or tell me how many people you are worried about, one or the other. Just frame it that
Worried
way.
about in what way?
Toxicity, can't trust.
Okay.
You mentioned toxicity and not being able to
Yeah.
trust. And so are
And
there
we
some
don't really
people?
have toxic people on our management team
Okay.
anymore. But there are people I don't trust.
Okay.
And I would say there's a handful, maybe 5. There's probably, let's call it 15 people. There's probably 5 I implicitly trust, 5 I'm not sure about, and 5 I don't.
Okay.
Those aren't exact numbers, but that's kind of the breakdown, right?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And define what it means for you to trust them. What does that mean to you?
I think it means you're not back channeling conversations,
Okay.
but that you're talking about whatever we need to talk about in front of the whole group,
Okay.
or directly to me or Russell or whoever, you're connected to. I think there's a group, we call them the old guard because they've been with the company for a long time. And they tend to back channel. And those are, the main people I don't really trust because they back channel outside of meetings.
Mm-hmm.
I think just having the sense of we won't all agree, but we're going to have a fierce conversation about it. So we're going to sit in these meetings together, and I need you to be honest. If you don't agree, you can say you don't agree. So part of that, I get that we have to create a safe space for that.
Yeah.
I totally get that. And this group under prior leadership, I don't really think it was a safe space for disagreement and those kinds of things. So I get that I'm going to have to spend some time kind of making it that.
Mm-hmm.
But people need to have our back, and I don't want to say toe the company line, but they need to be like, this is company we work for, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not perfect, but we're here.
Yeah. Have you spent any time creating some sort of like standards for the management team, or like, here's how we're going to work together, or anything like that?
We haven't, no. And I think that's a good observation, because I do think the team needs to kind of come together and say, here are the rules of engagement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the yeah, because what I hear you saying is that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you're unsure about the loyalty of some people, to you, to the company, to the vision. And so I guess my other question would be, have you been one-on-one with everybody on that management team? Because I think, to affirm you, getting that team right is is smart. And I'm sorry, I put on my consulting hat there, but
No.
yeah.
I'm just starting one-on-ones with most of the team.
Okay.
So I've had, I think, 3 already.
Mm-hmm.
And part of, the one-on-ones with them is I'm trying to build some trust individually, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I ask them to bring their own agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but I said one thing on the agenda has to be your career, because I feel responsible to help you grow your career, but I need to know where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we've started.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, working on that. Now,
Okay.
one person on the team, and she's part of the old guard. She's our HR person. Um, she got moved into the First American HR system. So she's been our HR business partner, and she's being laid off on February 5th. So that's going to shake the team up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she's a person I'm not sure if I can trust. So I'm like, all right, well, we're removing one little piece of the old guard.
Yeah.
It'll be fine, but it's also going to be a shakeup. So she was a person like super excited to have one-on-ones with me, and now she'll be gone. So yeah,
Mm.
but yeah. And then we still have part of this group is still Jeff and Joe, who are one of the prior owners, and the COO was the COO. So yeah, that's muddy too. We're talking about making them consultants, which would take them
Mm-hmm.
out of our executive team and our management team, which actually would be really, really good, I think.
Would that lessen then that total number in the
Yeah,
room?
yeah,
Yeah.
which I think would be helpful as well. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's hard for people to be honest with them in the room,
Yeah.
because there's just this legacy of their position.
So what would it look like to just for us to come up with, we're kind of halfway there and there's a lot here.
Yeah.
And I think first we talked about, today just to verbally vomit what's going on would be success. So
Yeah.
we've got that. I did write down, it's interesting, you were able to clearly articulate a vision, and I will email it back to you. I think you know it.
Good, because it feels like not a vision, because for me, it's hard for me to articulate to other people. We're trying to get the right people on the bus, but that's
Right,
what we're trying to do. We're level setting this year, and that means we're getting our team in place, right?
right,
It's hard, I think, for other people to understand that, because they want
right.
something else really big and spectacular, but it's like we got to start with the basics here.
Yeah. Yeah. And the basics, I'm gonna take off my coach hat for just a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I heard clearly though, this 4-point vision: grow and build, do excellent escrow, grow and build as an organization, employ the best people, and be an excellent place to work. So that's that vision statement. That's the dream state of the organization. And even if that's always been the vision, articulating it in the current context that's what's different.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that
so
totally makes sense.
what I'm thinking about with our time is the parts that you have identified as the pieces that need to be really focused on this year, are probably employ the best people in the excellent place to work, starting with the management team.
Mhm. How
How does that resonate? Because that's something real tactical underneath a vision.
Yeah, I think that really it strikes a chord with me, because if you have the best people on your management team supporting the people on the front lines generating the revenue, I think that speaks volumes to the kind of support they have. And part of
Mhm.
what we've focused on, and kind of a passion for me, is, I mean, I've done escrow, I've been on the desk, I've been at varying levels of management, right? And the thing that makes the difference, regardless of the size of the company, is that direct manager and how supportive that person is. And by
Mm.
support, I mean they find solutions to your problems, right? If you come to them and say, I need blah, blah, blah with my time card, they don't say, call so-and-so or open a case, blah, 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 right? They work with you to try to fix it. It's that extra little, you're not just this person who's passing along a problem, you're actually helping them find a solution. So I think getting that management team in place that provides that level of support makes us the excellent place to work. It really does.
When you think about a management team or qualities of those people, what are some things that come to mind based on what you just described? Which I heard you say this is people are for the people that work for them, capital FOR.
I think it's a lack of a big ego based on your position, and you're willing to do anything, even if that means you go sit at the front desk and answer the phones because somebody's out, which I've seen people do, right, from our management team. It's that, I don't like the term servant leadership, but it really is kind of a servant leadership type of vibe, right? That you get that your paycheck is what it is because of those people, and you're doing whatever you can to facilitate their work. And it's if you're in the position because you want the title or you want the job or you want to be the boss, it's not going to work for you.
So based on that description, which was excellent, like what's something tangible that you could do now that you've described that as you're looking at your management team?
Probably articulate that, right? Like, and we have articulated that in various ways. And I think like our sales manager gets that. You know, he's a guy who says, you know, we're here to support you. Now he takes it a little step too far. So I have to deal with that with him because he's like a little too empathetic with some people. Sort of like, okay, we don't want to promote bad behavior here. I get empathy and all that, but you know, he tends to be a little too sympathetic with people, but I like the direction he goes anyway. So yeah, kind of articulating that, but also I do think they're not doormats. They get to have healthy boundaries, right? So supporting them, and from my position, supporting them in their difficulties with some people too, I think is important, because when you are that kind of leader, it's easy to get just trampled on all the time. So, and they probably need a little coaching in that regard.
So this is a short session.
I know, right? Well, good thing we have 4, Christy.
I have, well, I'd like to take a pause here, and first of all, and we can go a little bit over, and if you can, I can just a few minutes, but are we going in the right direction for what would be helpful?
I think just fleshing all this out is even helpful, right?
Okay. And then let's talk about maybe a couple practical steps that you could take before we meet again. We talked about at the beginning that, you know, it'd be really important to just get it all out there today, but with the end goal, sort of knowing what the vision is, but then also a plan to communicate it. And then a lot of what I heard you say is there's dynamics around the management team that have to be addressed. So what do you, you know, in your gut thinking, like, there's a couple things I need to do before I get too big with this?
Probably articulating where we're going and what our core. We did a whole thing in, I think, November, December with the management team around our values, and we asked the team together to pick 2 of the 6 that we were going to focus on, and the 2 they picked we all picked together were moxie and forward thinking. And so I kind of want to lean into those this year, but I kind of wonder if this needs to be talked about in our next management meeting, which is in, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. As to, here's our overarching vision, right? And here's how you play a part in that. And are you on board with that?
Yeah. Yeah. And do you feel like would this be sort of a new way to communicate it?
Yeah. Like a very direct way to communicate it, rather than talking around it, like saying specifically, like, everyone, revolves around our mission, vision, values, right? Like, we create raving fans out of everyone we touch, and we this and we that, and they know our values and all these things, but it's sort of like, okay, well, we have all that and those are a constant, but where are we going now? And so just saying this is where we're going now, as much as it aligns with where we've always been, maybe that's just what they need to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, you were very clear. I think I heard very clearly where you see the vision, and those are vision statements. So I want to affirm that. Even if it sounds like it's just what we've been doing, if it's not where you are right now, then it's a vision statement.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it has to stand the test of time to a certain extent. And it has to stand the test of, can it be an umbrella for all of these companies? And I do think growing, building, doing great escrow, being a great place to work, all those things really cover over all of them. Now, all of the mechanics of how we're going to integrate another company under our leadership, all these other things is a whole other more tactical thing, right? But I think if we could, and everybody across the management team could articulate that that's what we're about, and then how they play a role in that, I do think that would be very clarifying. It's clarifying for me in this moment. I think it would be clarifying for them in the group. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're at 11:29. I'm going to switch back again to just for the consultant side. What I've seen is that things get too quickly to the tactical piece, and bringing people back to the why. And if these are our whys, like we want, this is one, then you make decisions based on that. And so if someone is not the best person because they are back channeling or this, or they aren't a fit for the right role, it's easier to make that decisions not independently, but based on, hey, we're employing the best people. And so kind of part of it might be fleshing out what that means. But
well, that's a really great point, because our HR business partner, she doesn't have the skill set that the other HR business partners have. And her boss, her director of HR was basically telling her that, right? So they're laying her off because she's the weakest link. And, we've struggled with her for a long time because she is kind of a weak link. And it's sort of like, oh, okay, we have to build a new relationship with somebody different who's outside of our world, but coming into it. But she'll actually know all the things we need her to know, and probably be a better support for our people, even though she's not going to be the familiar person that's worked with us for 15 years.
Yeah.
So
that's a great point. That's a great case in point.
It's a great way to frame that, to say, if we're talking about what's going to support our people the best, it's an uncomfortable transition to make, but in the end, it's going to be a better support for us. So yeah, I like that. It really does help clarify.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, well, we're at the end of our time, and I thank you for being just really honest and open. I think maybe it won't be before next week you have the conversation, but I think maybe doing a little work around how you would communicate, very directly, very succinctly, like, hey, here's where we're going. To the management team, and they don't need to know, like you said, they can't know all that other jazz, but framing out almost like an impact statement about success for us would look like if we had these 4 things just humming along. So maybe before next week, if you could just have some thought processes around those four things: grow and build, excellent escrow, employ the best people, excellent place to work, that you just whizzed right out like a good CEO does. They already have it. They just got to be asked.
Why do I doubt myself? Yeah, right.
Well, I was gonna, we don't have, I'm gonna stop recording.
The whole other, yeah.